There is a particular kind of silence that speaks louder than any argument ever could. It is not the silence of fear, confusion, or emotional exhaustion. It is not the silence of someone waiting to be noticed, chosen, rescued, or apologized to. It is the silence of finality. It is the moment when your energy changes so completely that the narcissist can no longer find the familiar doorway back into your heart, your mind, or your nervous system. You may still be standing in the same room. You may still be answering simple questions. You may even still be polite. But something inside you has shifted. The emotional hook has been removed. The fantasy has cracked. The hope that they will finally understand, finally take responsibility, finally become the person they pretended to be in the beginning, has quietly died. And when a narcissist senses that, they know. They may not admit it. They may mock it. They may test it. They may pretend not to care. But they know when you are truly done. The moment a narcissist knows you are done is rarely the dramatic scene they expected. They often imagine endings as performances because much of the relationship has been built around performance. They expect crying, begging, long explanations, emotional speeches, desperate attempts to prove your worth, or one more painful conversation where you try to make them see how badly they hurt you. They expect intensity because intensity has always been useful to them. Your tears gave them evidence that they still mattered. Your anger gave them proof that they still had access. Your explanations gave them another opportunity to twist your words. Your hope gave them more time. But when you are done, the emotional performance stops. You no longer try to convince them of your pain. You no longer audition for basic respect. You no longer argue with distortion. You no longer hand them your deepest wounds and wait for them to become gentle. That is when they feel it. They feel the absence of your emotional supply before they understand the reason for it. A narcissist may not process love the way you do, but they are often highly sensitive to control, access, attention, and emotional reactions. They notice when your eyes no longer search their face for reassurance. They notice when your voice no longer shakes during conflict. They notice when their coldness does not send you spiraling. They notice when their charm no longer softens you. They notice when the same tactics that once pulled you back now fall flat. The cruel comment, the sudden affection, the guilt trip, the silent treatment, the fake apology, the dramatic accusation, the promise to change. None of it lands the way it used to. That is the moment they begin to understand that the old version of you, the version they could manipulate through confusion and longing, is no longer available. For a long time, you may have believed that being done would feel like strength. Sometimes it does. But often, before strength arrives, being done feels like emptiness. It feels like waking up after a long emotional fever. You are not necessarily excited. You may not even feel victorious. You may feel tired, clear, sad, and strangely calm. That calm is what unsettles the narcissist. They are used to your emotional investment. They are used to being the center of the storm. They are used to watching you rearrange yourself around their moods. When you stop reacting, they lose one of their most reliable mirrors. They can no longer look at your distress and feel powerful. They can no longer use your compassion as a bridge back into your life. They can no longer count on your confusion to keep you stuck. The narcissist knows you are done when your boundaries no longer sound like requests. In the past, you may have explained your boundaries with too much softness, hoping they would not be offended. You may have said, "Please don't talk to me that way," and then stayed while they continued. You may have said, "I need space," and then answered every message. You may have said, "This hurts me," and then accepted another excuse. But when you are done, your boundaries become simple. You do not decorate them with long emotional disclaimers. You do not beg for cooperation. You do not debate your right to have limits. You say what you mean, and your actions match your words. That consistency is frightening to a narcissist because manipulation thrives in the gap between what you say and what you are still willing to tolerate. They know you are done when you stop over-explaining. Over-explaining is often a survival strategy in emotionally unsafe relationships. You explain because you hope clarity will create empathy. You explain because you have been accused of things you never meant. You explain because they keep pretending not to understand. You explain because somewhere inside, you still believe that if you find the perfect words, they will finally care. But narcissistic people often do not misunderstand as much as they benefit from misunderstanding. They use confusion as a weapon. They turn conversations into mazes. They demand proof of your pain, then reject the evidence. When you are truly done, you stop entering the maze. You realize that your truth does not require their agreement. You understand that someone committed to avoiding accountability will not be transformed by one more beautifully worded explanation. This shift may look small from the outside. Maybe you answer, "I'm not discussing this anymore." Maybe you leave the room. Maybe you block the number. Maybe you stop checking whether they watched your story. Maybe you no longer rehearse imaginary conversations in the shower. Maybe you stop hoping mutual friends will tell you they regret losing you. But inside, the change is enormous. You have withdrawn your emotional labor. You have stopped managing their image, their emotions, their wounds, their excuses, and their reactions. You have returned responsibility to its rightful owner. A narcissist senses this withdrawal because they have been living off that labor, sometimes for years. The moment they know you are done is also the moment they may escalate. This is important to understand. Many people expect a narcissist to disappear once they realize the relationship is over. Sometimes they do, especially if they have another source of attention ready. But often, they attempt to regain control. Not necessarily because they love you in the mature, accountable, selfless way you hoped for, but because losing access threatens the story they tell themselves about their power and desirability. They may suddenly become kind. They may send the apology you waited months or years to hear. They may promise therapy, commitment, honesty, softness, marriage, change, or closure. They may say they finally understand. They may cry. They may become nostalgic. They may remind you of the beginning when everything felt magical and intense. This is often the most dangerous emotional stage because it touches the part of you that still remembers who you wanted them to be. But when you are done, nostalgia no longer hypnotizes you. You can remember the good moments without using them to erase the harm. You can miss someone without inviting them back. You can feel compassion without volunteering for more damage. You can recognize that the beginning was beautiful and still admit that the pattern became destructive. This kind of emotional maturity is deeply inconvenient to a narcissist. They prefer extremes. They want to be worshipped or feared, desired or hated, chased or blamed. Your grounded clarity gives them very little to manipulate. You are no longer saying, "You are a monster." You are saying, "This is not healthy for me, and I am leaving." That calm truth is harder for them to fight than rage. A narcissist knows you are done when guilt stops working. For a long time, guilt may have been the chain around your ankle. They may have suggested that you were abandoning them, betraying them, misunderstanding them, hurting them, or giving up too easily. They may have brought up their childhood, their trauma, their stress, their loneliness, their mental health, or everything they supposedly did for you. They may have made you feel cruel for protecting yourself. But healing teaches you the difference between compassion and self-erasure. You can care about someone's pain without allowing that pain to become a weapon against you. You can acknowledge their wounds without becoming responsible for being wounded by them. When guilt no longer makes you return, the narcissist realizes they have lost one of their strongest tools. They also know you are done when fear stops directing your choices. Maybe you were afraid of their anger. Maybe you were afraid they would smear your name, replace you quickly, expose private information, turn people against you, or act like you never mattered. Maybe you were afraid of being alone. Maybe you were afraid that leaving meant admitting the relationship was never what you believed it was. Fear can keep people tied to harmful relationships long after love has become pain. But the moment you decide that staying is more frightening than leaving, the power balance changes. The narcissist may still try to intimidate you, but intimidation loses force when your desire for peace becomes stronger than your fear of their reaction. One of the clearest signs that you are done is that you stop needing them to validate your version of reality. This is a profound turning point. Narcissistic relationships often involve gaslighting, denial, minimization, blame shifting, and emotional contradiction. You may spend months or years trying to get the other person to admit what happened. You may crave one honest sentence. Yes, I hurt you. Yes, I lied. Yes, I manipulated you. Yes, your pain is real. But when you are done, you stop waiting for the person who benefited from your confusion to certify your clarity. You become your own witness. You trust your memory. You trust your body. You trust the pattern. You trust the exhaustion. You trust the version of you that kept whispering, "This is not right," even when you were trying to make it work. That self-trust changes your energy. You no longer ask questions you already know the answers to. You no longer search their words for hidden tenderness. You no longer mistake emotional crumbs for commitment. You no longer confuse jealousy with love, control with protection, or intensity with intimacy. You stop romanticizing the highs because you finally understand the cost of the lows. You begin to see the cycle instead of just the moments. Idealization, devaluation, discard, hoovering, temporary sweetness, renewed harm. The pattern becomes visible. Once you can see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. And once you cannot unsee it, the narcissist can no longer sell you the same illusion at the same price. They know you are done when your body stops moving toward them. The body often knows before the mind is ready to admit it. In the beginning, their message may have made your heart race with excitement. Later, it may have made your stomach drop. You may have mistaken anxiety for chemistry because the emotional highs and lows were so addictive. But when you are done, your body begins to reject the chaos. Their name on your phone no longer feels like destiny. It feels like disturbance. Their presence no longer feels magnetic. It feels heavy. Their compliments no longer feel nourishing. They feel strategic. Their anger no longer makes you want to fix everything. It makes you want distance. This is not coldness. This is your nervous system recognizing danger and choosing safety. The narcissist may respond to this by accusing you of changing. In a way, they are right. You have changed. You are no longer as available for confusion. You are no longer as impressed by charm without character. You are no longer willing to trade peace for potential. You are no longer confusing endurance with loyalty. You are no longer measuring love by how much pain you can survive. To someone who benefited from your lack of boundaries, your healing will look like cruelty. To someone who relied on your self-doubt, your confidence will look like arrogance. To someone who expected endless access, your distance will look like betrayal. But their interpretation does not define your growth. When a narcissist knows you are done, they may attempt to rewrite the story. This is another common reaction. They may tell people they left you, that you were unstable, that you were too needy, that you changed for no reason, that they tried everything, that you were impossible to please, or that they are the real victim. This can be painful, especially if you once protected their reputation while they damaged your peace. But when you are truly done, even the smear campaign loses some of its power. It may still hurt, it may still be unfair, but you begin to understand that people committed to misunderstanding you are not your assignment. You do not need to chase every lie with evidence. You do not need to defend your entire life in the court of public opinion. The people who know your character will see it. The people who prefer gossip were never safe places for your truth. Being done does not always mean you stop feeling. That is one of the most misunderstood parts of healing from narcissistic abuse or narcissistic relationships. You can be done and still grieve. You can be done and still miss the version of them you met in the beginning. You can be done and still feel waves of sadness, anger, longing, or disbelief. You can be done and still have moments when you wonder whether they ever loved you. Being done does not mean you become emotionless. It means your emotions no longer make your decisions for you. It means grief may visit, but it does not get to drive you back into harm. It means nostalgia may speak, but it does not get to rewrite history. It means love, if any remains, is no longer stronger than your self-respect. The narcissist knows this difference. They may test whether your grief is still a doorway. They may send a message on a meaningful date. They may bring up an inside joke. They may mention a song, a place, a memory, a promise. They may act wounded in a way that feels custom-made to reach your empathy. They may appear just when you are beginning to feel free. This is why being done must become a practice, not just a decision. You may have to choose it repeatedly. You may have to choose it when you are lonely. You may have to choose it when they seem sincere. You may have to choose it when your friends do not understand. You may have to choose it when your mind tries to bargain with the past. Every time you choose peace over the old cycle, the bond weakens. A narcissist often knows you are done when you stop trying to make them feel the consequences emotionally and simply allow them to experience the consequences practically. In the past, you may have wanted them to feel remorse. You may have wanted them to cry the way you cried. You may have wanted them to understand the depth of what they destroyed. But when you are done, consequence becomes less theatrical and more real. You remove access. You stop giving updates. You stop being available for late-night emotional emergencies. You stop lending money, energy, attention, explanations, intimacy, forgiveness, or friendship on demand. You stop being their backup source of comfort after they disrespect you. You stop proving that you are different from everyone else who left. You let your absence speak. This is often when the narcissist becomes most aware of what they took for granted. Not necessarily in a healthy way, and not always with genuine remorse, but with recognition. They recognize that the person who once absorbed their moods is gone. The person who once answered quickly now takes hours, days, or never responds. The person who once fought for the relationship now refuses to fight alone. The person who once believed every promise now looks at behavior. The person who once kept the door open now changed the lock. They may feel injured, offended, or challenged. They may frame your self-protection as punishment. But losing access to someone they assumed would always stay can trigger a sharp narcissistic injury. A narcissistic injury happens when the image they have of themselves is threatened. If they see themselves as irresistible, your indifference wounds them. If they see themselves as the one in control, your boundaries threaten them. If they see themselves as the victim, your quiet exit complicates the story. If they see themselves as superior, your refusal to engage feels like disrespect. This is why your calm can provoke them more than your anger ever did. Anger still means they matter enough to disturb you. Calm suggests they no longer own the emotional room inside you. For a narcissist, that can feel like a loss of power. But your goal is not to wound them. Your goal is to free yourself. That distinction matters. If you are leaving only to make them regret losing you, you are still emotionally tied to their reaction. If you are healing only to prove your worth to them, they are still the audience. True freedom begins when your recovery is no longer a performance for the person who hurt you. You do not become peaceful so they will notice. You become peaceful because chaos was costing you your life. You do not become unavailable so they will chase. You become unavailable because access to you must require respect. You do not move on to win. You move on because you are no longer willing to abandon yourself. The moment a narcissist knows you are done, may be the same moment you realize how much of yourself you had been postponing. You may begin to notice the friendships you neglected, the goals you delayed, the hobbies you stopped enjoying, the body you ignored, the sleep you lost, the confidence that slowly eroded. Narcissistic relationships can shrink your world until everything revolves around the other person's approval, moods, and contradictions. When you step away, your life may feel strangely quiet at first. That quiet can be uncomfortable because your system is used to crisis. Peace may initially feel boring. Safety may feel unfamiliar. Healthy love may feel less exciting because it does not activate the same panic. Give yourself time. You are not losing passion. You are detoxing from instability. The narcissist may interpret your healing as proof that you never cared. They may say, "You moved on so easily," even though they watched you suffer for a long time before you left. They may say, "You gave up," even though you gave countless chances. They may say, "You're cold now," even though they trained you to stop bringing warmth to places where it was repeatedly used against you. Do not let their late interpretation erase your long endurance. Many people do not leave narcissistic relationships when love runs out. They leave when hope runs out. They leave after trying everything they could think of. They leave after explaining, forgiving, waiting, adjusting, shrinking, researching, praying, begging, and breaking. By the time they finally walk away, the relationship may have been over inside them for a long time. That is why the narcissist may feel shocked even when the ending was predictable. They noticed your complaints, but not your pain. They noticed your boundaries, but not the courage it took to say them. They noticed your reactions, but not the wounds underneath. They assumed that because you stayed before, you would always stay again. This is one of the great miscalculations narcissistic people often make. They mistake patience for permission. They mistake forgiveness for weakness. They mistake love for lack of self-respect. They do not realize that every disappointment is quietly teaching you how to live without them. Every broken promise is training your heart to detach. Every cruel argument is making the fantasy less believable. Every lonely night beside them is preparing you to choose loneliness without them over loneliness with them. When you are done, you may not need revenge because you finally understand that their pattern is its own consequence. A person who cannot love without control will keep losing genuine connection. A person who cannot apologize without manipulation will keep damaging trust. A person who needs admiration more than intimacy will keep choosing performance over closeness. A person who sees accountability as humiliation will keep repeating the same cycles with different people. You do not have to destroy them. You only have to stop letting them destroy you. Their life is theirs to face. Your life is yours to rebuild. Rebuilding after a narcissistic relationship requires patience because the damage is often invisible. You may second-guess simple decisions. You may feel guilty for resting. You may apologize too much. You may expect kindness to disappear. You may feel suspicious when people are consistent. You may struggle to identify what you want because you spent so long monitoring what someone else wanted. This does not mean you are broken. It means you adapted to an emotionally unsafe environment. Healing is the process of teaching yourself that you no longer have to live in anticipation of someone else's storm. You can return to your own rhythm. You can become familiar with your own needs again. You can trust slow peace. The narcissist knows you are done when your life starts becoming bigger than the relationship. At first, leaving may still revolve around them. You may think about what they are doing, whether they miss you, whether they are with someone new, whether they are telling the truth about you, whether they will ever come back with a real apology. But over time, if you keep choosing yourself, your attention returns home. You begin making plans that do not include them. You begin laughing without checking your phone afterward. You begin enjoying mornings that are not shaped by their mood. You begin making decisions based on your values instead of their reactions. You begin to want things again. This is one of the strongest signs of recovery. Your future stops being organized around their potential return. They may sense this and try one final move. Sometimes it is sweetness. Sometimes it is rage. Sometimes it is pity. Sometimes it is indifference designed to make you chase. Sometimes it is a sudden emergency. Sometimes it is a message that says, "I hope you're happy," carrying just enough sadness to make you feel responsible. But done means you no longer confuse contact with closure. You understand that every message does not deserve a response. Every accusation does not deserve a defense. Every apology does not deserve access. Every memory does not deserve a reunion. Closure is not something they hand you after they have withheld honesty for months or years. Closure is something you build by accepting the truth, even without their cooperation. That truth may include painful contradictions. They may have had moments of tenderness. They may have helped you at times. They may have loved you in the limited way they understood love. They may also have harmed you deeply. You do not have to flatten the story into one simple label to justify leaving. You are allowed to hold the complexity. You are allowed to say, "There were good moments, and the relationship was still unhealthy." You are allowed to say, "I loved them, and I cannot be with them." You are allowed to say, "They have wounds, and I am not responsible for being hurt by them." Mature healing does not require hatred. It requires honesty. The moment a narcissist knows you are done is ultimately the moment they realize they are no longer the author of your emotional reality. For too long, they may have defined the relationship, the conflict, the rules, the meaning of your reactions, and the value of your needs. If they said you were too sensitive, you wondered if you were. If they said you were selfish, you worked harder to prove you were not. If they said the problem was your tone, you softened it. If they said they never said what you clearly remembered, you doubted yourself. But when you are done, you take the pen back. You name what happened. You name what it cost you. You name what you will no longer accept. You name the future you are choosing. This does not mean you need to diagnose them publicly or convince everyone that they are a narcissist. The label may help you understand the pattern, but your freedom does not depend on winning a psychological debate. What matters is how the relationship affected you. Did you feel safe, respected, heard, and valued? Were conflicts followed by accountability or punishment? Did apologies lead to changed behavior or just another cycle? Did you become more yourself in the relationship, or did you slowly disappear? These questions matter more than any label. You do not need a courtroom-level case to leave a relationship that consistently harms you. You are allowed to leave because peace matters. The narcissist may never give you the ending you deserve. They may never sit across from you with humility and say, "I see it now." They may never acknowledge the manipulation, the betrayal, the cruelty, the neglect, or the emotional games. They may move on quickly and act happy. They may tell the next person you were the problem. They may keep a version of the story where they are innocent. This can feel unbearable until you understand that their lack of accountability is not proof that you imagine the pain. Some people protect their ego at the expense of the truth. That does not make the truth disappear. It only means you may have to heal without their confession. And you can. You can heal without the perfect apology. You can heal without being understood by the person who hurt you. You can heal without everyone knowing the full story. You can heal while still having bad days. You can heal while still grieving. You can heal while rebuilding your confidence piece by piece. You can heal by choosing not to answer. You can heal by going to therapy, journaling, walking, praying, reconnecting with friends, sleeping deeply, eating regularly, creating again, laughing again, and remembering that you existed before this relationship consumed so much of you. Healing is not a single grand moment. It is 1,000 small returns to yourself. The moment a narcissist knows you are done may feel like the end of a war, but it is also the beginning of a quieter responsibility. Now you must learn not to betray yourself again, not because you should blame yourself for what happened, but because your future needs your protection. You must learn the difference between chemistry and character. You must learn that consistency is more romantic than chaos. You must learn that love bombing is not love. You must learn that someone who refuses accountability is not emotionally safe, no matter how intense the connection feels. You must learn that your empathy is precious, but it needs boundaries. You must learn that seeing someone's potential does not obligate you to suffer through their patterns. Being done is not always a door slam. Sometimes it is a quiet unfollow. Sometimes it is deleting a draft message. Sometimes it is not checking their page. Sometimes it is telling a friend the truth for the first time. Sometimes it is saving money. Sometimes it is making a safety plan. Sometimes it is sleeping through the night without waiting for a reply. Sometimes it is looking at an old photo and finally seeing the sadness behind your smile. Sometimes it is whispering, "I can't do this anymore," and believing yourself. The world may not notice the exact second you become free inside, but the narcissist often does, because the energy they once fed on is no longer flowing toward them. And when they know, they may try to make you doubt it. They may say you are making a mistake. They may say nobody will love you like they did. They may say you are dramatic, damaged, ungrateful, replaceable, or cruel. They may say exactly the words that used to reach the most vulnerable parts of you. Let those words reveal why leaving was necessary. Healthy love does not need to terrify you into staying. Healthy love does not require you to abandon your reality. Healthy love does not punish you for having limits. Healthy love does not use your wounds as handles. Healthy love does not make peace feel like betrayal. The moment you are done is sacred because it is the moment you stop negotiating with your own destruction. It is the moment you choose dignity over drama, clarity over confusion, and healing over hope that has become harmful. It is the moment you stop waiting for the narcissist to become the person they pretended to be and start becoming the person you were always meant to be. It is the moment you understand that losing them may hurt, but losing yourself was costing you more. It is the moment their power begins to end. Not because they changed, not because they apologized, not because they finally understood, but because you did. You understood that love without respect is not enough. You understood that promises without change are manipulation. You understood that being needed is not the same as being valued. You understood that someone can desire your presence while resenting your boundaries. You understood that the relationship you were fighting for may have existed more in your hope than in their behavior. You understood that peace is not too much to ask. You understood that you do not have to keep bleeding just because someone else refuses to see the wound. So when a narcissist knows you are done, let them know through your consistency, not your performance. Let them know through your absence, not your anger. Let them know through your peace, not your revenge. Let them know by refusing the old role. You are no longer the fixer, the emotional caretaker, the backup plan, the silent sufferer, the loyal witness to repeated disrespect. You are no longer available for cycles disguised as love. You are no longer interested in potential that requires your pain as proof of devotion. You are no longer waiting at the door of someone who kept locking you outside and calling it love. The deepest victory is not that they know you are done. The deepest victory is that you know. You know in your bones. You know in the calm after the tears. You know in the way your hand no longer reaches for the phone. You know in the way your breath returns. You know in the way your standards rise. You know in the way your future begins to feel possible again. Their realization may be dramatic, angry, manipulative, or silent. Yours is the one that matters. Because once you truly know you are done, the relationship no longer has the same power over you. The spell breaks. The door closes. The self returns. And for the first time in a long time, your life begins to belong to you again.